Are you ready for rapid fire?
Yes, I am.
Let's do it then. All right. I see this post by David that we'll get to here in a minute as well. We talked about that last night. But Marcus Freeman is now 2-3 as a head coach. So my question is, which milestone number will Freeman get to first in his career? 30 wins or 12 losses?
This, I'm crazy about the numbers. So I was running a lot of different scenarios in my head looking at this. And what I came up to is, that's a 2.5 multiplier, meaning that, 12 is 2.5 to get to 30. And I started looking at, okay, how does that translate to records? He could go 8-4 these first 3 seasons, assuming, he coaches 3 seasons, and he would be at 12 losses and 24 wins. Okay. Then you step it up to a 9-3 average, 27 wins and 9 losses. And so you're kind of in that range of he's got to win 8 to 9 to 10 per year and lose probably no more than 4. And he's already got 2 this year, and it's the first year, and he's got a couple hard games left. I'm unfortunately going to have to say that it's going to be close, but oh man, this is, I think he's going to get to 30 wins by like 1 game. Like it's going to be very close. I think it's going to come down to like, if he wins this game, he's at 30. And if he loses, he's at 12, but at like 29 wins. Like it's going to be right on the dot close.
So you're telling me that I picked the numbers correctly,
yeah,
is what you're saying. I made it hard, right?
I think after this year, he's got, I think this year ends somewhere around 8-4, 9-4. And so those next 2 years, I think he's got, he's got the foundation set. We know about these good recruiting classes. I think that this will be his worst year and the rest are better. And so this year is, kind of what I just said, 8-4, 9-4. Then I think he just barely gets it, but that's where I'm at. 30 just barely, like by a nose hair.
So here is the history of this question. Rutgers head coach Greg Schiano came into this season with a career record of 76-81. And I heard this on some national show that he's got a 76-81 record. And the question they asked is, does Schiano get to 100 wins or 100 losses first? And I was like, ooh, that's an interesting little question there. And I mean, he's at Rutgers, and all this kind of stuff. And by the way, Rutgers is 3-1 this season. So he is now 79-82 for his career. So, he's actually, he's getting closer to 500, but he's got Ohio State coming up this weekend. But anyway, so I hear that question, and then I spun it forward to Marcus Freeman, who at the time that I heard this question, because this was coming into the season, he only had Fiesta Bowl under his belt. And so I'm starting to think about, okay, where do I set the numbers for Freeman? And, I'm kind of all over the place with him, because at that point, everyone is still pie in the sky, and, the sky is the limit for Marcus Freeman. He's going to come in and, maybe they lose to Ohio State, but they're going to steamroll through this season and be in playoff contention. And obviously, it was time to pump the brakes on that pretty quickly. But so, I had actually set the win total pretty high. I think 45 was my starting point coming in to the season. And then, again, it's like you lose a couple games and I think you have to adjust it a little bit. And, they're 0-2, obviously. But now they've won their last 2. And it seemed like kind of a good time to bring it back up. So as to my answer, if my math is correct, 30 wins in 42 tries, that's a 741 winning percentage, right? Like 71%, 714 basically. Like you compare that, I think Brian Kelly has like a 740 winning percentage. Nick Saban is like an outrageous 80%, 800. And, you kind of went through it, like if they're around 9 wins, going 9-3, taking out the bowl games, like if they go 9-3 the next couple years, if they're able to be kind of in that 8-9 win range this season, he'd be around 27-10, and again, it's like they're going to be pretty close. And, let's say he goes 2-1 in the bowl games. And then where are you? I think you said this, 29-11, so it's like,
it's going to be right there.
That's exactly right. It should be right there. And that's saying that he has 3 average seasons. But like you said, The recruiting is getting better. You're going to, continue to see, more, bigger caliber recruits and athletes and stuff coming in. So I am going to say 30 wins as well. I think that, that's kind of it. I don't think it's even overly optimistic. I think it's going to be really close, but I think that he ends up getting there before the 12 losses.
I'll even go so far to say if they beat USC and Clemson this year, I will 100% say he gets to 30.
If they beat Clemson, okay, yeah,
and USC and USC.
Oh yeah, obviously, because that obviously is going to swing things. Yep. And then Shaitan says 45 would be wonderful, but too optimistic. And again, that was the number coming into the season before they had ever played another game. And I was obviously kind of sitting on it to sort of see how things went, and then had to make an adjustment.
Apparently, Derek thinks that they are just going to rip off. We are in the 2-game.
It's not even going to be close.
Yeah, the 30-game win streak has started, and we're 2 games in. Only 28 more to go.
That's right.
All right, I want to know Drunk Vigo's opinion.
Vigo says drinking the Kool-Aid again, bro. So where are you? Are you saying 12 losses? Is that where it is? Is that where it is, Vigo?
We'll see.
I don't know.
It'll pop up.
I know. So we had some comments about the question we brought up last night about JD Bertrand. David says, if Marcus Freeman doesn't appeal JD's targeting call, it's a major mistake, sends the message that he may not have the players' backs as much as he leads us to believe. Do you think that he needs to appeal this, to kind of show that he does have the players back in all this, Jess, or what do you think? I mean, we're both in agreement that it was that what happened with JD Bertrand did not warrant targeting and ejection. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of lightly touched on this a little bit yesterday. I didn't like Freeman initially coming out in his press conference saying that, it was JD's fault and it was targeting. It's like, you haven't seen it yet. Most coaches say, I got to look at the film, or we'll look at that in the film, that kind of situation. And so I thought that it was, I didn't like it. I didn't like that he didn't just, take his players back. I don't think you have to blatantly be like, oh, you don't have to take either side. You don't have to say, oh, definitely it wasn't targeting or it wasn't, but I wouldn't say that it definitely was without saying, okay, I'm going to go take a look back and we'll talk about it and kind of sit down with him and, see what we can do to kind of further tweak things. So yeah, I definitely think it kind of shows, and not that he doesn't trust or believe in his players, but it can come off like that in this situation. If this is how, it plays out and continues to be handled.
I just think that it's close enough that, again, like Marcus Freeman made the comments that he made, that it was targeting without being able to sit down and watch the film. If he sat down and watched it, I think that it's close enough that it is worth appealing, especially if, this is one of your starting linebackers. It is worth a shot to an appeal. It's not like you get one appeal and you're never allowed to appeal these things again. It's not like a replay challenge or something. You have nothing to lose by appealing this. Now, you can still do the things that he was talking about, work with JD Bertrand if you think that he needs to have better tackling form and, all this different stuff so that he's not putting himself into those situations. The Cal targeting was much more clear. He launched himself and he launched himself. The ball was the whole thing. That was a lot different than this one. Stymie says, instead of an appeal, I'd rather see a concerted effort in the offseason to change/update the rule. No ejection if no malicious intent. And I've said this all along. I think that the targeting rule in college is stupid. It is somewhat well-intended because the idea behind it is if you eject a player, then you're trying to retrain him, again, what Marcus Freeman was talking about. You're trying to get him to change the way he's doing things so he's not going to do it again. It's very rare that you see a player 2 weeks in a row get ejected, for targeting for the same thing. But I've always said the way I'd like to see the rule changed is if you get flagged for targeting, first time it's just a personal foul. If you get flagged a second time in the same game, then it's an ejection.
No matter what.
Yeah, no matter what. Intent, whatever. If they determine it's targeting, then it's an ejection. I don't think that I don't think that ejecting a player on the first instance is warranted.
Yeah, and I think every targeting case should be reviewed after every game to decide if ejection was warranted. And I think I'm okay with if having to leave the game or whatever, if that's the route they decide to go. But I think that if every targeting call like that should be sat down and looked at after the game as well to determine if the suspension needs to carry into the next game or if that just the however much time that they had to miss in the current game was enough. So
Right.
that's if they're going to stick with this rule, I think that that's the amendment that I would have to see.
Right. Fill in the blank. It's blank that former Notre Dame cornerback Shaun Crawford tweeted this the other day. Quote, 12-team playoff is really unnecessary, unquote. Now, there's no context to this, but what do you think, Jess?
I mean, it's absolutely true. I think that the 12-team format is just another, honestly, money grab because it's just going to create more games and more watched, this and that. And I'm on board with we're just going to see, some crappy matchups in the first round. Maybe we'll see, a Cinderella here or there, but I really don't think that it's going to happen. To me, the perfect number was 8, 4, and then, your championship game after that. So I think 12 is too many. I would have preferred 8. I definitely think that we needed more than 4, but I think 12 is too many. So I absolutely agree that it's completely unnecessary to have a 12-team playoff.
Now, again, no context, but if you apply it to Notre Dame, one, to what you were talking about, that you're not going to get good matchups, I think you'll actually get better matchups in the first round than you're going to get, than what you have right now when you look at these, every year there's at least one lopsided game in the college football playoff. It's not just when Notre Dame is involved, so I think you're going to get better matchups in the playoffs. You're going to get more teams involved, which I think is good for the sport. You're not just going to have the same teams over and over again with this 4-team pool. And from Notre Dame's perspective, this is very good for Notre Dame. A 12-team format is very good for Notre Dame. This is what's going to let them. This is what's going to allow them to not have to join the Big Ten. To stay independent going forward. The Big Ten or any other conference. And if you look at it for this year, there's actually a scenario where Notre Dame could find itself back, if there was a 12-team format this year where they could find themselves in the playoff picture, if they run the table. Because just on its face, right, and you might kind of scoff at that, well, the way they've played and this and that. Well, if they don't lose to Marshall, they're a top 10 team still right now, or at the very worst sitting there at 11 or 12, and they're in the playoff mix right now, so there's something still to play for if there was a 12-team playoff format. So I don't mind it. I would like it.
Good thing that we can have differing opinions.
That's why we do this, right? You're allowed to have yours. I'm allowed to have mine. Fill in the blank. It's blank that the ACC has reportedly suspended the side judge who flagged Cal for being offside on that field goal attempt against Notre Dame. The ACC apologized to Cal and admitted it was a bad call.
It's unfortunate, but it's appropriate. It's unfortunate because it happened to Cal, and I think the worst thing you want to hear afterwards is, hey, we messed up. We know we messed up, but you can't go back and change anything. So I think that kind of festers even more. And I think the fact that, it's unfortunate because it happens to everyone. There was last night, I hate to be, bring up the Cowboys so much, but their wide receiver got tackled in the end zone and no flag was thrown, but I still had to live through that. That's a potential, 1st and 10 at the 1-yard line, and they're just going to punch the ball 4 straight times and behind their offensive line. So,
and another receiver gets held at the line of scrimmage by 2 defenders and no call.
Right. And so I think that it's unfortunate, but it was the appropriate call. There wasn't an offside. So to me, it just sucks. And as a Cal fan, I would hate to hear it. Player, coach, that was obviously 7 points put on the board, or sorry, a 4-point swing at most, and maybe a 7-point swing because with Group, you don't even know if he's going to make the field goals.
Yeah. It's appropriate that you started talking about the Giants game because Michael started chiming in about saying that it's hypocritical that they apologized for the call that went against um, Cal. Now he says the offensive PI at the end of the first half was
You're talking
ridiculous.
about
Goes
where
both
the
ways.
guy who actively jumped into the Cowboys DB.
But the point is, I think he makes a good point because and it really goes back to your point because whether it's flagging Cal for being offside on that play, there were obviously other missed calls in that game. They didn't just go in Notre Dame's favor, and I think you can say that in any game. There are always going to be missed calls. So, the ACC, they ate it. They apologized to Cal, whatever, doesn't matter. It's not like they're going to go back and change the result of the game after the fact, but they're eating it off this. Are they going to apologize to Notre Dame for not reviewing those two pass plays that at least one of them should have been incomplete? No, they're not going to apologize to Notre Dame for that. So I don't know why you bother apologizing. It's you're just picking where you want to make the acknowledgement. I don't understand.
Are you? This is a question because this has come up a lot in kind of what happened with the Chris Jones penalty against the Colts the other night. I think just like MLB umpires, referees should be held to not question, but what their logic was sometimes. Like there should be a rationale for why they made calls, especially calls that are altering, game-changing calls like that. In my opinion, I don't think you necessarily need to apologize or maybe, say that you were wrong, but I would like to understand the rationale in some instances, I guess.
No, I
If that
agree.
makes sense.
I agree. I think that when you get some of these controversial calls, that an official should be made to answer questions. And I know that there are instances where there is a designated, member of the media, like pool reporter. It's like a one-on-one thing. They don't actually have to stand up in front of a press conference, but they do from time to time, answer questions. But it's not, with the camera on them and that kind of stuff like a coach or a player has to do when they make a mistake. The officials have impact on the game and they get paid. Are they getting rich? Probably not, but they get paid good money, and these guys all have other jobs as well. And I think that they should be held accountable and made to answer some of these questions, just like the athletes and the coaches have to.
Yep.
Fill in the blank. It's blank that Fox apparently had a no signs about Urban Meyer policy when they were on location for this past Saturday's game at Michigan.
It's weak. Capital WEAK. These guys make millions of dollars. Okay, they sit out and they get to be at the most gorgeous campuses and be around the sport of college football every Saturday. And you can't tell me that a little sign is going to hurt anyone's feelings because there's signs about everyone out there. There's signs about coaches, players, you name it. The most random people will just get called out with signs on game day. You never know what's coming. So I think it's weak, and it has to be a direct request from Urban Meyer, and I think it shows his fragileness as a man. I think is what it comes down to.
Yeah, I mean, they had no problem hiring this guy back. Despite the baggage they knew was going to come with him the whole time. That goes back to that bar in Columbus with the girl last year, and I think them playing him in Ann Arbor. That's what it's. They were all worried about it because obviously, all the Michigan fans and his Ohio State connection and all that. And Fox tried to come back and say, well, we don't have a specific policy about no Meyer, Urban Meyer signs and all this stuff, the PR people, but they were confiscating Urban Meyer signs before the show. They hired a scumbag and they don't want anyone reminding everyone else of that during their own broadcasts on TV. So
yeah,
it is what it is. If you're gonna bring this kind of guy back, you got to live with what comes with it. And people are going to have fun with it. And that's really all it is fun. And if Urban Meyer can't hack it, he shouldn't be on TV.
I think it kind of goes both ways. I bet Urban was like, hey, I'm going to maybe request this in my new contract. And Fox
maybe
was
he did.
Hey, that's a good idea. And it helps with our, our picture and our overall product. So it's a win-win for everyone.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. All right, the NFL is replacing the Pro Bowl with what they call the Pro Bowl games. It's a week-long skills competition that'll culminate with a flag football game. Do you buy it or do you sell it?
I buy it like 10 times over. I think this is a great idea for the NFL. I think that all major sports teams should get away from ML All-Star games in general. I think the only one that I actually enjoy is the MLB All-Star game, and that one still kind of has not lackluster, but it's not obviously the most exciting thing 100% of the game. And I think it makes the most sense for football just for the obvious reasons. It's the most physical. It's the highest chance of injury. You
Guys
don't
don't want to
want,
be there.
yeah, guys don't want to be there. You don't want a guy, your franchise defensive end tearing his ACL. You saw Sterling Shepard last night completely tear his ACL in a non-contact injury. So why provide another opportunity for that kind of stuff to happen? I think it's more fun. You can get more fan involvement, which in turn would probably increase attractiveness and interest for the players. So I like this. I'm curious. I think that this is a big moment for them because you can do so many just fun different competitions here. This is I think good for them, and I think they need to capitalize on this situation that they're about to embark on.
And you know who's going to be involved in it? Omaha Productions, owned by the one and only Peyton Manning. That's right. That's right. Peyton's got a hand in this. They're going to be, they're going to have a role in this. I like it. Week long, I don't know, but I guess they can boil it down and again, like turn it into a TV show, basically. And this is like something that I've said they should do. The flag football game, I was a little surprised by that they're actually going to play a flag football game at the end of it.
It's just a glorified 7-on-7.
Yeah, I like the skills competition, though. There's a lot of different stuff you could do. Like I would actually like to see an offensive lineman 100-yard dash competition, for example. Like have them do things that are sort of the opposite of what you envision them, doing well. The offensive lineman doing that, and then have the wide receivers, put 225 on the bar, and like you can do that with everybody. But I like it. I think it's going to be cool. I'm going to be really curious to see like what the skills competition turns into. I think it's going to be a lot better because the Pro Bowl itself, which had been around since 1951, but the game itself is just like fewer and fewer people watching all the time. And I'm sure the union had something to do with it. And they're like, look, we don't want to risk going out there and getting hurt in a game that doesn't matter. So I think this is really interesting, and they can make it pretty fun, like an obstacle course, do those kind of things, like I think there's a lot of different things that they can do with this. So I like it.
Best offensive line touchdown celebration.
There you go. There you go. Or, Quentin Nelson can lead the keg stands out there for that matter. Fill in the blank on this next one. CeeDee Lamb, talked about this earlier, dropped what would have been at least a 50-yard pass last night against the Giants. He was smiling and tapping himself on the chest, kind of saying, it's on me, that kind of thing after the play. It's blank when you see players smiling after those kind of plays.
I don't remember if I texted you my feelings about this after it happened.
I don't think you did.
I must have been too caught up with the enrage that I had in the moment. I told you I hosted some people till about halftime last night. Just ask the people in the room how many F-bombs I dropped when I saw him smiling. That was just so ridiculous. Like, I understand the tapping yourself on the chest. Okay. Yeah. But like the smiling and kind of like laughing, like, dude, you just dropped a very important pass in which, this offense doesn't hit big pass plays. It's not designed to hit big pass plays at the moment. And for you to just drop the ball and then smile about it. I was so infuriated. But Michael Hahn brings up a good point. It seemed to really get to him because after the Giants scored,
it motivated him.
CeeDee Lamb drive, and he caught just about everything. So I don't know if that was the fire that he needed because he hasn't been great this season. In all honesty, I don't.
No, he hasn't.
Was that drop.
My fantasy football team knows it too.
Was the cherry on top. So I think it did fire him up, and I joked with my friends and said I sent him a text at halftime and said Noah Brown was better, or he needs to step it up because Noah Brown had been playing better than CeeDee Lamb. So I absolutely hate when players smile or laugh after they make a big mistake. I think it's absolutely crazy, and it drives me crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's annoying to see, like when you see a player smile like that. But I get, again, it's like he's a professional athlete, and what's he going to do? Like literally beat himself up and kill himself on the field because he dropped a ball. I think that's almost all you can do sometimes is just smile and put it on. Like Michael said, he made up for it later. If he hadn't made up for it later, I think this would be a bigger issue
Oh
because
yeah.
I saw Ed Werder, tweeted about the fact that he was smiling after the fact. It definitely drives you nuts though. Like when you a big play like that and it's an easy catch. It's just like it's like a little alligator or like pterodactyl arms or whatever. It's just like catch the ball. It literally hit him right in the hands in stride. You couldn't have thrown a much better pass, especially if your name is Cooper Rush. So it's very annoying to see them smile like that, but like fans obviously get a lot more invested, I think, but he did make up for it later, both with the physical catch and run that he had, that it better be on angry runs on Good Morning Football coming up tomorrow, and also with that one-handed touchdown catch that he made on the next
Isn't it
play.
insane that he could drop that pass,
I
but
know.
then go on to just make that insanely ridiculous one-hand catch?
But it shows you there's a lack of focus.
It's just concentration.
Yeah, that's exactly it. If you can make that kind of spectacular play, you've got to be able to make those routine plays. Concentration, focus. That's all it is.
I like we're getting the Brian NY Clemson Wake Forest ESPN special.
Yes.
Right now,
we're getting cut-ins in the chat. We're getting Aaron Judge cut-ins in the chat.
At least we don't listen to it though. We're just seeing the count flash up. So I guess I am grateful that this is way less invasive, but I still know what's going on.
Right. So speaking of that game last night, a New York Giants fan painted his bald head in the fashion of a Giants helmet for last night's game. He was in the stands and you could see him there, and they kept cutting over to him. His whole head, including his face, was painted blue, and then he had a red stripe from his chin, right down the middle to the back of his head, and he had the old school NY on the side. My question is, have you ever thought about painting your face when you go to a game?
I've never ever thought about going full face paint. I'm okay with putting maybe painting on a little shamrock here, or putting a little, leprechaun here. That's fine. But when we're talking whole face, like, okay, I'll be the first one to admit it. I've done, the little face mask before with my girlfriend where you put all the stuff on and then you let it dry and you peel it off. That to me is very similar in the fact, and I hate it. It's so itchy. It's uncomfortable. You feel like you can't touch your face, like all of it. So there's no chance I would do it. And I thought there was a couple funny things when I saw it that kind of popped up that made me chuckle. The first one was, I saw someone tweet, think about driving home after this game. It's like 12 o'clock in the morning, and you look over next to you at the stoplight, and you see this crazy man with their face painted. Like, what are you to think? What are you to expect? And then the second one was my good friend off of Arrested Development. I thought of that one as well, where he has his entire face painted blue. So there was a couple,
blue man.
Yeah. So there was a couple good chuckles I got out of the situation, but there's no way that I would be doing that ever, to be honest with you.
There's an episode of Seinfeld that's actually titled "The Face Painter." I don't know if you remember that one. It's David Puddy, Elaine's boyfriend Puddy, and they're going to a New Jersey Devils game, and he paints his face, and he's, got to support the team, and that whole thing. There was a whole episode dedicated to it.
Knows it too, I guess. I think you guys could be bros.
Oh, there he is. There he is. Drunk Vigo is in on it. Putty painted his face in Seinfeld. That's exactly right. I've never done that. The closest thing I've ever come is way back when a friend of mine and I, for Halloween, we the Road Warriors, the old professional wrestlers, the tag team duo Hawk and Animal, we painted our face like we were Hawk and Animal for Halloween. That's the closest I've ever come, though. So
It's just so
That's
itchy
it.
and uncomfortable.
That's yeah, because you're right. Because like you would be feeling it all night, and I would want to be doing this,
Yes,
and
and
then all
you
of a sudden
can't.
you're rubbing paint off it, and then you got it on your hands.
It's the worst.
I
It
know.
is the worst.
I know. I could not even imagine. All right. Well, that's going to do it for tonight. Vince is going to be in for the mailbag show tomorrow. Appreciate you as always, Jesse, repping the
I
Cowboys, which is
hope.
good.
Final note. I left with a good final note yesterday. Irish Chi-Town, you asked me what the score was going to be. I said 23-13.
I'm not a
Okay.
boomer. I'm not a boomer, Vigo. Just because I have gray hair, I am not a boomer. Okay. So let's get that straight. All right.
Couldn't be friends with boomers. That's tough. That's tough on you.
I feel like Shaun is intentionally avoiding a Kiss concert story. I've never been to a Kiss concert, although I would have liked to. Back in the heyday, I would have done that. Rock and roll all night, party every day. All right, well, that's going to do it for tonight. Again, smash that like button if you would on your way out. Subscribe, rate, review, all the great stuff. And Chi-Town said, Jesse, I told my
Even got the
father how great
touchdowns
the
right.
pick was.
Zeke
Yep.
and Lamb. That's all I'm gonna say. We got to get going.
You were right, because what did it end up being?
23-16. I said final score would be 23-13, and I said
Yeah.
Zeke and Lamb would score, and both of those things happened. So
Yep.
I was just shooting from the
Boom.
hip, Irish Chi-Town. That just shows you how I'm ready at any given time.
That's right. Ready to go. All right, we'll talk to you later. IB Nation Sports Talk.
See you guys.